everyone, and welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel, and we continue with Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. So we're still on the topic of the book of Esther. This is all through chapter 50. It's a very long chapter. There's a lot to cover. But as we know, the story of Esther went between 9 and 11 years. And actually, the most significant time when Esther and the rest of Israel fasted was actually on Erev Pesach. So we're already going to go into Pesach dealing with this story. Everything works out perfectly. Baruch Hashem. So before we get into this, I'm dedicating this class to my friend Oren Suriel Ben Chana Le'ilui Nishmato. So we're in chapter 50. C. Hallelu et Adonai kol goyim, shabachu kol ha'omim, ki gavar elenu chasdo, ve'emet Adonai le'olam. Hallelujah. This one is called Sold for Nothing. Rabbi Pinchas says, 2 rich men had been in the world, Korach and Haman. So you can already understand there's been more than 2 rich men in the world, but it obviously it means it in a negative connotation. So the first, Korach from Israel, who found the golden treasures of Joseph. In Genesis 47:14 it says, and Joseph collected all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan with the grain that they were buying, and Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. All the money means all the money, including gold and jewels and any other kind of valuable commodity. Because the Hebrew says, Vaylaket Yosef et kol ha-kesef. Now, kesef is silver, but kesef also means money. It's like currency, right? Like today's the shekels is the type, but it's all kesef. Now the money was depleted from the land of Egypt and from the land of Canaan, and all the Egyptians came to Joseph saying, give us food. Why should we die in your presence, since the money has been used up? Ki afis kasif. The kesef is gone. The money's gone. Everything we have to trade is gone. And when the money was gone, and Joseph said, give me your livestock, and I will give you food in return for your livestock if the money has been used up. So Joseph made Pharaoh the richest king and Egypt the richest nation in the ancient world. Before Joseph's death, he hid his personal treasure away, which was made up anywhere between 1/3 and 1/2 of all the treasure, of everything. Before Israel left Egypt, they went and collected all the treasure that was within all the Egyptians' homes, and that was their lot, right? That was what was taken from the Israelites to begin with. That's why they just took it back. The Midrash states that each man of Israel had 90 donkeys packed to the brim with gold and silver. Each man of it, that's 600,000, okay? Just so you understand, 600,000 men times 90, it's about 54 million donkeys. Now, again, like we said, is not the time to suspend your disbelief. Egypt and everything, right? Okay. But then Korach found Joseph's personal treasure, which he hid, making Korach the single wealthiest man in the world at that time. Part of the Korach rebellion was to protest the fact that the Levites, Korach was a Levite, he was Moses' first cousin. The Levites were not allowed to own any possessions, but would exclusively live off the tithes of their brethren, right? Israel's got to take care of the Levites take care of the Kohanim, but the Levi'im, they have no nachala. Where's the tribe of Levi? Nowhere, right? Okay. And meaning they were scattered amongst the tribes, not in a negative way. Their job was basically to be a backup to the Kohanim. I say backup, meaning they didn't have the same jobs, but to support the Kohanim. Everybody had to support everybody. Israel, the Levites, the Kohanim, Avodat Kodesh, for the sake of Israel, and so on and so forth. What ended up happening to Korach and all that immense wealth that he had? Numbers 16:32-33. The earth beneath them opened its mouth and swallowed them and their houses and all the men who were with Korach and all the property. They and all they possessed descended alive into the grave, into Sheol. The earth covered them up, and they were lost to the assembly. Okay, we understand what went down here. So, again, the large majority of the wealth of this planet, gold, silver, jewels, and such, had been hidden away. In this case, it was swallowed up by the earth. What we have today, all the wealth that we have today in the world, is nothing compared to the actual wealth, the gold and the silver and the jewels and precious stones of the ancient world. Now, we've learned right here in Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer what God did to Sodom and Gomorrah, the richest cities on earth at the time, as gold and jewels were beneath the earth. It said when one of the master of the house told his servant to go pick him some carrots, and he would pluck them from the earth, it would come with gold dust and with other precious stones with them. So you're bringing back your vegetables, and you're also bringing back a basket filled with jewels and gold. It was crazy. That's why it's not, so not only was the land fertile, that's why Lot chose it, because it was a good land, but also it was a rich land. Okay. So what did God do to those cities? Genesis 19:35. He turned over these cities and the entire plain and all the inhabitants of the cities and the vegetation of the ground specifically. All right. So again, if you go to where Sodom and Gomorrah could potentially have been, if you go there today around the Dead Sea, it looks like a meteor hit it, right? It's, not with the craters and everything, but fire and brimstone. Everything is kind of burnt to ashes and dust. So what happened? God flipped everything over, including the land itself. So we see that God from the ancient times has already begun burying all the treasure deep down in the earth for a reason. But we also learned in Calling All Jews how when Mashiach comes, the sea will vomit up all the gold, silver, and jewels that it has unto the shores of Jaffa. Now, I know we think we have an idea of what wealth is today, but compared to the natural resources of the ancient world, really today is nothing. Even though if you think about it, if you look at how they used to live, even in the city of David, the time of David, a wealthy person had like a tiny little courtyard and, 2-3 bedrooms, no bathroom. Okay. Those were like the rich people. Today, if you look at how people are living today compared to back then, you would think that today we're living in crazy luxury because of all the amenities and, we have a sewage system and running waters, it's a good thing. Nevertheless, the actual gold and silver and jewels today is nothing. Okay, so, and the powers that be, they know this, by the way, which is why they have been subtly steering everything back to the gold standard. They know this. Gold today is at an all-time high, going from less than $500 per ounce to over $3,000 per ounce. Just look at the chart. And yet still none of that matters because Haggai 2:8 says, the silver is mine and the gold is mine, says the Lord of hosts. And where do you think all that stuff is coming back to? And God will give it to whoever he chooses. And in this case, it's the other rich guy of the world at that time, or later on at that time, Haman. And Haman, who took the treasures of the kings of Judah and all the treasures of the house of the Holy of Holies. So this is some fascinating stuff. We know that the temple vessels have been taken by Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian, which was then taken to the Medes, then to the Persians, as Ahasuerus the Persian displayed them in his banquet. But how exactly did he get his hands on them? That is the question. We also know that the Ark of the Covenant was never removed from Jerusalem, as it is buried deep underground in Temple Mount. It never left the mountain. The second temple had no ark. There was nothing there in the Holy of Holies. Remember that. The Holy of Holies in the second temple was just an empty room. So you need to understand something. Not only are the gold and silver vessels considered to be the temple treasures, but so are the stones and the wood. They are all holy. The copper from the wash basins, the tiles from the floors, everything is holy from the temple, especially the first, not the second temple, but the first temple. The very earth of the mountain itself is holy. Now look what the Radal says regarding this. What did he take from the house of the Holy of Holies? What's the house of the Holy of Holies? That's the temple, right? What did Haman take from the temple? It says, etz, the tree. Now, etz means in modern day Hebrew, it's a tree, right? Biblically, how do you say a tree? It's called an ilan, ilanot, right? Tu bishvat, chag la'ilanot. But etz in modern day Hebrew and in biblical Hebrew can also mean wood, and that's what he took. Which means that Haman stole the wood from the Holy of Holies to make a beam of 50 amot to hang Mordechai with. Which tells us that Haman himself was part of the armies of Nebuchadnezzar, and he personally had a hand in destroying and looting the first temple. This guy. So he wasn't just a dude with an ego, right? He was a bad dude, rotten to the core. So we covered that he stole from the temple, and now we see that there was wood which he used as the hanging spot for Mordechai, and where that all came from as well. But our text also says that he had all the treasures of the kings of Judah. All the treasures of the kings of Judah. That is a lot of treasure. Remember, all the gold and the silver and the jewels came to Israel at that time. From David gathered it, and then Solomon added to it, because all the nations of the world, they gave him tithes, basically. And again, and it was passed down until Nebuchadnezzar. And it turns out that he might have, as it doesn't say, it doesn't take away from, let's say, Achashverosh, how he got his hand on the temple vessels, which we'll see in the coming text. But there's something else Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer is telling us here. The reason Haman the wicked had our treasures, the reason he prepared a noose for Mordechai only to swing on it himself, is the very same reason that Rome of today, this isn't right now, Rome of today has many of our temple vessels, likely including the menorah, which, again, I don't know, it's literally set in stone in the Arch of Titus over there. This is the same reason that Temple Mount is literally capped by a mosque. We already discussed that, right? You see, the wicked Edom and Ishmael, so we're talking about the church and we're talking about Islam, will crumble and fall. They will, absolutely. I mean, it says it everywhere. But in the meantime, they have to hold on to our stuff which is not theirs, but they got to hold on to it in the meantime. The plan was very clear as what is going to be with them. This is in Job 27, 13 to 17. This is the portion of a wicked man with God. You want to know what's going to happen to a wicked man with God? Here's what he does. Here's what's going to happen to him. And the inheritance of the powerful, which they receive from the Almighty. The wicked receives this from God. If his sons increase, they will be for the sword, and his grandchildren will not be sated with bread. His survivors will be buried in death, and his widows will not weep. If he gathers money like dust and prepares clothing like clay, he will prepare, and a righteous man will wear them, and he will distribute his money to the innocent. Yachin v'tzadik ilbash v'chesef naki yechalek. V'chesef naki yechalek, he will distribute clean money. The righteous will. In other words, the wicked is going to prepare and prepare and prepare. Everything is coming to the righteous man. God is allowing them to do the dirty work because why not? Go ahead, prepare that beam for the Jew. See what happens in the end. A wicked man cannot turn a holy item unclean, but a righteous man can make that which is evil good. You still have to purify the item, right? But you can't make it unclean. The Roman Catholic Church holds the temple vessels today, and that's all they can do. And they think by doing it that Mashiach can't come and we can't build the third temple. Stupid. The day will come, and it will come soon, where they will be begging for us to take them back. Now, how did the riches of the kings of Judah fall into the hands of Haman? God said this would happen. 2 kings, 20:17 and Isaiah 39:6. It's essentially exactly the same thing, except the difference it says Bavel or Bavela. Okay? So we're going to read from 2 Kings. Just open this with me. 2 Kings 20, verse 17. Behold, a time will come when everything in your palace and what your forefathers have stored up will be carried off to Babylonia. Nothing shall remain, said the Lord. And they will take some of your sons who will issue from you, who you will beget, and they will be officers in the palace of the kings of Babylonia. This is what Isaiah was telling Hezekiah. Hezekiah, okay, who was supposed to be Mashiach of his time. Why did he tell him this? Let's read a few verses earlier to see exactly what's going on. This took place shortly after God healed him. Remember, he gave him an extra 15 years because he prayed. He gave him an extra 15 years. God healed him from his deathbed illness. So we're going to start with verse 12. At that time, Berodach Baladan ben Baladan, Melech Bavel, the king of Babylonia, sent letters and gifts to Hezekiah, for he heard that Hezekiah had been ill. And Hezekiah listened to them, and he showed them his entire treasure house, the silver, the gold, the spices, the good oil, and the entire house in which he kept his vessels, and everything that was found in his treasuries. Now look what it says again. This is from the Torah. There was nothing that Hezekiah did not show them in his palace and in his kingdom. Wow. And Isaiah the prophet came to King Hezekiah and said to him, what did these men say, and whence did they come to you? And Hezekiah said, they have come from a distant country, from Babylonia. Mi Bavel. And he said, what did they see in your palace? And Hezekiah said, they saw everything that was in my palace. There was nothing that I did not show them in my treasuries. And Isaiah said to Hezekiah, hearken to the word of the Lord. Now we're caught up, right? Behold, the time will come, everything in your palace, everything your forefathers have stored up, everything. There is nothing that they will not take from you. Who? The Babylonians. There it is. What do we learn from this? I will tell you. The kings of Judah back then, because remember that by the time the kingdom split, the Assyrians had already kidnapped the 10 tribes. Now there was just the kingdom of Judah. That's it. The kings of Judah back then, who represented the kingdom of Judea, and like the Jews today, cannot share that which has been bestowed to them. Don't even look at it. And what treasures do we have today? All the gold and silver has been taken. So tell me, what treasures do we actually have today? Something maybe that's worth a little bit more than gold and silver. We have the Torah, of course. The scepter shall not depart Judah. Okay. This is why the laws of teaching Torah to the nations have been very strict over the ages. The reason for the prohibition is because a Gentile who studies Torah is considered to be committing adultery. We already covered this, right? It's not between you and God, it's between Israel and God. And if you take something, if you seize it without permission, that is adultery. Since the Torah was given to Israel and the covenants therein, the Zohar adds that a Gentile is forbidden to study Torah because the Gentile is uncircumcised. There's Olah, that is the most impurities in this world. Studying Torah, and we're talking about apart from the impurities of death. That's how everything is. But I'm saying, how do we purify ourselves? Why are we commanded to circumcise on the 8th day? Specifically for this reason. Studying Torah is devoted to God and is only possible through the covenant of circumcision, the observance of which brings a person to a very high spiritual level. This is from the Zohar. However, now I tell you, times have changed. And because we are so close to the end, you have the world leaders in the Orthodox communities who have made exceptions. There are exceptions. These are them. A Jew may teach Torah to Gentiles only if he knows that their intentions are honorable, which is for the sake of conversion or to be a Noahide. That's it. Which means, you're watching this right now, if you are gleaning from this, if you believe in any other religions or false messiahs or what have you, You are responsible. Your blood is on your own head. Or someone else's blood is on you, whatever. Gentiles are not allowed to learn Torah Hasod, the secrets of the Torah, meaning Kabbalah. I know this will sting many of you out there, but it's like we said in our group. We teach a group every Sunday. We do not condone this. You're big kids. You will be held responsible for your decisions. Delving into the Zohar, that's between you and God. We said it's not okay. Whatever, but you're big kids, you do what you want. It even says in Sanhedrin 59a, if a Gentile learns Torah, he is liable for the death penalty, not by man, but from heaven. That's between you and God, and I'm not getting involved in this. Why are these rules so strict? There's a reason, okay? Because the Christians, Edom, took our treasures, Torah, the Torah, as said in Deuteronomy 33:4. Torah tziva lanu Moshe, morasha kehilat Yaakov. The Torah that Moses commanded us is a legacy for what? The congregation of Jacob. It says Jacob, it doesn't say Israel. If you are not of the congregation of Jacob, there are rules for everyone's protection. You are not doing harm to Israel by doing this. You are only doing harm to yourself. They took our treasures. They perverted it, causing almost a third of the world to believe in idolatry. Not to mention what they did and have been doing to Jews for almost 2,000 years now. It's very clear to see. And this is why our text in Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer says that because Hezekiah showed the treasures of the house of Judah, it was seized by the same ones who he shared it with, who he showed it to. So back to our text. Haman, Amalek from Edom, took all the treasures of the house of the Holy of Holies, the temple, and all the treasures of the kings of Judah, and the king Achashverosh, who saw all his wealth and the wealth of his sons, because it only mentions 10 sons. He had way more than 10 kids over there. It said he had several hundreds. He don't only had one wife. He had plenty of them too. But she was like, the head witch. Like literally she was an actual witch. Wished to elevate his rank and status. Achashverosh, because of Haman's wealth, he saw what he had. He wished to elevate his rank and status, as said in Esther 3:1. After these events, what events? Oh, dude's got some bank. King Achashverosh promoted Haman, the son of Hamdata, the Agagite, and advanced him and placed his seat above all the princes who were with him. From Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, we understand that all Haman's sons were ministers. They were important people, which means they had tremendous political power. The whole Haman family over there, right? As they will do exactly what their father tells them. So who was actually running the show? It was Haman, and we'll see it. So you have the richest guy in the world who holds all the political sway as well. Promoting Haman was a strategic move and likely the smartest thing this idiot king could have done. Keep your friends close, right? But keep the Hamans even closer. If you're a Jew, you kill him though. And also, this is why the king gave Haman everything that he asked for. Because if Haman had turned on Achashverosh, he would have been dethroned or assassinated like that. The only reason he was not was because of Haman's ego. That's it. Haman's deepest desire, as we read later in Esther chapter 6, 7, 8. And Haman entered the king and said to him, "What should be done to a man whom the king wishes to honor?" asked the king to Haman. And Haman said to himself, "Whom would the king wish to honor more than me?" You see, it's not like, yes, from this, from learning past classes, past teachings, we understood that Haman, I'm talking about past Purims and years past, Haman wanted to be king himself, but not just by taking out the king. He wanted the king himself to promote him to king. This is how crazy he was. And Haman said to himself, whom would the king wish to honor more than me? And Haman said to the king, a man whom the king wishes to honor, let them bring the royal raiment, and the king that the king wore, and the horse that the king rode upon, and the royal crown should be placed on his head. What are your deepest, darkest desires? I want to be you. I want your job. And let the raiment and the horse be delivered into the hand of the one whose king's most noble princes, and let them dress the man whom the king wishes to honor, and let them parade him. Stop it. Parade him on the horse in the city square, and announce before him, Kach hayaseh la'ish asher hamelech chafetz bikaro. So shall be done to the man whom the king wishes to honor. Haman is expressing his deepest desire, which the king saw. And that is, he wanted to be king himself. But like we said, not only just to be king himself, that would do nothing. Remember that scene? What was it from? It was a Gladiator, right? You could, quietly kill Maximus, right? Outside of the arena, but then they would never honor or love or respect the emperor. Therefore, his only way out was in. He had to fight him in the arena. That was the stage, right? That was the only way. So, egomaniac, kind of the same thing over here. So let's continue. And the king commanded that all the nation would bow down and prostrate themselves to Haman. This was a command from the king. Now, why in the world would an egotistical king command his entire nation to bow down to anyone other than himself? He was afraid of Haman. He saw that Haman entered the temple. You got to understand, as dumb as they were, they had a lot more wisdom than we do today. He saw that Haman entered the temple, sacked it, right? Even the Holy of Holies, after, the ark was gone already. And not only did he not die, not only was he not poor afterwards, not only was he not childless, but it's as if his actions garnered the opposite effect. You see, how could such a wicked man possess the treasures of the kings of Judah and the temple? Asks our commentator Velo Dela. He says he boasted about it, just as, who was the other dude who destroyed the second temple? Just as Titus did. When we learned about how the mosquito is what took down Titus, Titus was boasting, I went into the Holy of Holies, I burnt this house to the ground, God got nothing on me. And what happened? Oh, really? Here's the mosquito up your nose hole. Okay. So when Titus entered into the Holy of Holies and cut the parochet, the curtain, with the sword, you can read exactly what happened, this story, in Masechet Gitin 66b. Enjoy. Titus foolishly believed that he actually killed God. Why? Because God made it so that when he cut the parochet, that blood came out. He's like, I got this invisible God of the Jews. And the evil Achashverosh believed that Haman possessed supernatural powers to be able to defy God and his holy places, as he did, and get away with it. Whoa, I'm not messing with this guy. Which is why Achashverosh commanded that everyone bow down to him, not because of his honor as a minister in the king's court, but because he desired to do so for the sake of idolatry. This, by the way, is common practice among Edom, and they will do it in the sneakiest of ways. Take Christianity, for example, which many educated Christians know it has nothing to do with, Christmas. Christmas has nothing to do with the New Testament, right? Especially the time of year, because the time wasn't right. I don't need to get into it here. And yet Christmas is celebrated by billions of people around the world. Most are not even practicing Christians, just because it's fun. Listen now, this is how they do it. This is the sneakiness. Jeremiah 10. So says the Lord, of the way the nations you shall not learn, and from the signs of the heaven be not dismayed, for the nations, Edom, are dismayed from them. They get excited by all these things. We are not supposed to. That's what it says in Deuteronomy. For the statutes of the peoples are vanity, for it is but a stock that one cut from the forest, a tree, right? The handiwork of a carpenter with a small axe. With silver and gold he beautifies it, with nails and with sledgehammers they strengthen them so that it does not bend. Okay, So people think that Christmas is the most wonderful time of the year. Right. Tell me, do you not bow down to the tree to place gifts beneath them? And then do you not again bow down to the tree to receive gifts from them? By default, you can say this is nothing. No, it's just a tradition. It's just a this, that. But they make it that it's a seemingly mundane, necessary movement to give gifts and look, it's the time of giving. Time of giving is every day. Like bending down in order to give or receive gifts. It is in all actuality worshiping idols. Whether you are aware of it or not, this is what is happening. And whether you consider it or not, it is what it is. Christmas is such an unholy day because most of the world partakes in it. And in other words, the more tum'ah you do from everywhere, you give it power. And they stuck it right in the middle of Hanukkah, the festival of lights. Really. Not to mention that Santa, for goodness sakes, no one sees Santa, Satan, same letters? It can't be any more in your face. Now can it? But who cares? Because it's not your intent, right? God doesn't care that you don't care. That's the whole deal. So just as they do today, Edom, Amalek did it back then. Haman took full advantage of this decree and sewed an idolatrous image within his garments in his breast area. He's like, oh, everybody's bowing down to me. Well, they're already here. Let's all get everybody to be idolaters right now, whether they know it or not. And everyone who would bow down to Haman would do so to the abomination that he had made for himself. But Mordechai, the Jew, he saw this and did not bend the knee and prostrate himself to his abomination, as said in Esther 3:2. And all the king's servants who were with the king at the king's gate would kneel and prostrate themselves before Haman, for so had the king commanded concerning him. But Mordechai would neither kneel nor prostrate himself. As a result, Haman was furious at him and said, These Jews, they always hated my ancestors. Is that the deal? No. This is what he said. There is the truth, and this is what he is saying. Serpent. These Jews always hated my ancestors, and now I will tell the king to eliminate them. Le'abdam, from the world forever. In other words, it's not he's hurting my ego. Why is he not bowing down to me? Because the king will be like, dude, are you serious? You're the wealthiest guy in the land, likely the most powerful. I'm keeping you close so you don't kill me. I got to keep an eye on you. And you care because one single Jew out of all the land and all the Jews is not, kissing your butt? Dude, maybe get over it a little bit? No, that's not what he told him. He said, no, let me go back, ancestors. Okay. These Jews always hated my ancestors. The earliest mention of Amalek in the Torah is in Genesis 36:12. Yes. And Timnah was a concubine of Eliphaz, son of Esav, and she bore to Eliphaz Amalek. There we go. These are the sons of Ada, the wife of Esav. Okay. Now, if you read from the book of Jasher on who Timnah was, it says this, and these are the names of the sons of Seir, the Horite, inhabitants of the land of Seir, Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anah, Dishan, Ezer, Dishon, being 7 sons. And the children of Lotan were Hori, Heman, and their sister Timnah. That is Timnah who came to Jacob and his sons, and they would not give ear to her. And she went and became a concubine to Eliphaz, the son of Esav, and she bare to him Amalek. Now, if you read further from the Midrash, you will find that Timnah was a married woman when she came to Jacob, begging for him to marry. Just take me as one of your wives. Take me as a concubine. Let me live in your house. And Jacob's like, gross, don't touch me. She did the same thing to his sons, and they said, gross. Anyway, they saw nothing but filth, right? And they wanted none of that. So she settled for their cousin Eliphaz, the son of Esav, the new ruler of Seir. And if you look even deeper into certain texts, it will tell you this, that while she was married, she had relations with Eliphaz, and she gave birth to a daughter. This daughter was a mamzer, a bastard, born out of filth, right? Which means already her root was from something very, very impure. But it gets better. So now, Eliphaz later on had relations with his own daughter, with his own mamzer daughter, adding abominations atop of abominations, impurities to impurities. And that daughter gave birth to a son who basically pulled all the klipot and all the impurities with him into this world, and that boy was Amalek. See what I'm saying? Needless to say, no good would come of him. Because later when Israel left Egypt and the world was completely stunned, oh my God in heaven, there is a God in heaven, and these are his people, we are not messing with them. The venom that was Amalek's makeup, of his mother's ancestry being rejected by Jacob and his father hating Jacob, it was no surprise that Amalek dared to attack Israel, knowing full well that they would not win. Egypt, the most powerful kingdom in the ancient world, just got reduced to nothing. Zero, nothing. And you think they knew they would not be able to defeat Israel. Not even for Israel's sake. Forget about the fact that Israel was way more numerous than they were. Knowing that they wouldn't win, knowing that most of them would die in the process. This makes, guess what? Amalek the very first suicide bombers in the history of the world. The only people who have no value for life, not their enemies, not even their own. They threw themselves into the fire trying to get to Israel, and they drew first blood in this age-old conflict. Do we hate them before? No, just you stay there. We're going to where we need to go. Exodus 17:8. Amalek came and fought with Israel in Rephidim. This behavior and thought process of I will gladly die and send my children to die just to hurt you can only be seen from these poor innocent Gazans today. Nobody else does this in the world. This is behavior that is absolutely crazy. Do you hate somebody so much that you would actually throw your children on them just to kind of hurt them, even in the court of public opinion, not physically hurt them at all? This is what they do. They knew they wouldn't win on October 7th, but they didn't care. This is Amalek. It's 1-for-1. You can't get any more real than that. What happened after Amalek? We got the Torah, so just remember that. Amalek back then got the stranglers of Israel, those who were behind, right? Those who were not close to God, specifically, who were caught outside of the cloud. If they came into the cloud, that's the fire that would also burn them up. Just as they did on October 7th, because they were vulnerable. Shabbat, Simchat Torah, dancing around idols, very specifically anti-God kibbutzim. Those are the ones that got hit. And the only two settlements that no terrorist entered were Shomer Shabbos. They kept the Shabbos. Their gates were locked and they had protection. You can't make this stuff up, right? Okay, so we see like, wow, this actually what was is now. Okay. Back then they cut off the Brit from all the men. They threw it up to God saying, here's your covenant. They despise Israel and God and anything that has to do with them. And today, in the Munich Olympics of 1972, you know what went on over there? Brought freedom fighters led by Yasser Arafat, who also received a Nobel Peace Prize, mind you. 20 years later, he and his cronies, they came in to torture, mutilate, and slaughter the Israeli athletes, holding them hostage for days as the games continued while this was happening. I gotta go, but What? They knew it. It was they wanted to make a public statement. And the world kept on playing track and field or whatnot. They cut the athlete's brit. Yes, they did the same thing, just like their ancestors. And they shoved them in the athletes' mouths. They took pictures as the world was sympathetic to their cause and could not even bother to stop the Hellenistic Greek games from taking place. Shame on the world. And you know what they did a little over a year ago, right? This kind of behavior, the kind that the majority of the world calls resistance. Anyone who supports them, whether you do it out loud or even in your heart, anyone who does not condemn them, whether they know or not, their end will be like those they support. Their end will be like Amalek. You know how Amalek's going to end, right? And God already told us in Exodus 17:14, the Lord said to Moses, inscribe this as a memorial in the book and recite it into Joshua's ears, that I, God, will surely obliterate the remembrance of Amalek from beneath the heavens. Just see, free palace, see, just watch today, enjoy their faces, laugh. You will never see them again. They will be blotted out of reality. So just like these abominations of generations past quite literally started it and claim victimhood today, Haman, because Mordechai would not bend the knee, went to Achashverosh, not with that claim, he's not showing me the proper respect. No, but he decided to falsify the entire history to excuse the complete annihilation of the Jews. Sound familiar? See, certain things never change. And what did Haman do? Back to our text. He went to the king and he said the following from Esther 3:8. And Haman said to King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered and separate among the peoples throughout all the provinces of your kingdom. They're everywhere. And their laws differ from those of every people. And they do not keep the king's laws. It is therefore of no use for the king to let them be. Now remember what I just read to you, okay? Remember this. Because what I'm going to read to you right now is a speech from Adolf Hitler from 1933, one that he gave in the Siemens factory. Google this, look this up. That's how I got this. As he laid out his agenda when he was rising to power. Here's what he said. Let's read the from just again, okay? Haman said to the king, there is a certain people scattered and separate amongst the peoples. Meforad is to separate amongst the nations. You could also say causing separation amongst the nations. Throughout all the provinces of your kingdom, they're all over the place, and their laws differ from those of every people. They are not one of us. They got their own little groups going on, and they do not keep to the king's laws. They have no respect for us. They have no respect for you. It is therefore of no use for the king to let them be. Do we really need them there? Don't you think the world would be such a better place if, right? Okay, now, here's what Hitler said, and I quote, the struggle between the people and the hatred amongst them is being nurtured by a very specific interest group. It's a small, rootless, international clique that is turning the people against each other, that does not want them to have peace. It is a people of who are both nowhere and everywhere. And then in the crowd, somebody yells, Das Juden! Hitler doesn't, he's like, yeah, obviously, duh. It's crazy. Okay, so you understand? Listen again to the words of Haman. There's a certain people scattered and separate among all the people throughout all the provinces of your kingdom, and their laws different from those of every people, and they do not keep the king's laws. It is therefore of no use for the king to let them be. Do you think this could possibly have been a coincidence? And you know all the similarities, what happened Dafka, Purim, and with the Nazis over there, where the 10 Nazi generals were hanged exactly, and before corresponding with the 10 sons of Haman. And it was recorded, I forgot the dude's name. The guy said Purim Fest, and he gave the year. Why is a Nazi now saying Purim Fest over there when he's about to be hanged? What is going on here? They knew who they are. They know who they are. Okay. Amalek never changes. Midol ledol. That is the point, from generation to generation. Who is the Amalek today? You tell me. What? If the glove fits, right? Okay. They are experts, Amalek, in turning the world against the Jews to the point that complete annihilation could rationally be justified in the eyes and minds of the world. We were only following orders. And what about all the German, we didn't know anything, they were the Juden, okay, yeah, no problem. They're also on the list. We also have our naughty and nice list, don't we? As Haman continued in the next verse and said, if it pleases the king, let it be written to destroy them, and I will weigh out 10,000 silver talents into the hands of those who perform the work, to bring it into the king's treasuries. In other words, I'm not even giving you the money, king. I'll pay people to go and do this. You don't have to worry about it. Just give the decree. I'll pay the workers, right? Let me do you and all mankind a favor, king, and wipe them out from existence, is what actually went down here. Now our text continues as Haman then said, take half of my wealth and give them to me. That was what really went down. You like the treasures, right? You like all the treasures of the kings of Judah. You like the temple treasures. You see my power. I will give you half. Just give them to me. What do you say? Do me this favor. We just learned how rich Haman was, arguably more than Achashverosh even, and his negotiations started with half his wealth. He really had it in for us, now didn't he? And how did the king respond? The king said, you can have them for free. As we can see, Achashverosh was not a friend to the Jews. The image that comes to mind of this king is just like a fat pig with a Napoleon complex. Despicable human being. As a result of this decree, Ruach HaKodesh came out and declared from Isaiah 52 verse 3, for so says the Lord, you were sold for nothing, and you shall not be redeemed by money. Ki ko amar Adonai chinam nimkartem, velo bechesef tigalu. God already told us the plan before this ordeal. It took place in Shushan, right in the book of Isaiah. Because in the end, how were Israel redeemed? Did someone outbid Haman for the lives of the Jews? No, because money is not what saved us back then, just like money is not going to save us today. It doesn't matter how much money the U.S. keeps throwing at Israel publicly. We, the modern Zionist state of Israel, had quite literally already been bought and sold. And how much are we worth? Citizens, military, tech, infrastructure, land, everything. Apparently, we are worth $40 billion. Look it up, I know things. And since the powers that be, the Hamans of our time, own us, like we just read in Isaiah, we are not buying our way out of this. There is only one way out because there is only one way in. We need Haman. We need the decree of total annihilation because otherwise we are not moving an inch towards God. Sure, a bunch of people did tshuva and turned their lives towards God, but we don't need a bunch. We don't even need many or most. We need everyone. How's that going to happen? And this is something that did not happen 2,000 years ago when the Second Temple stood and some of the greatest and wisest of sages lived and guided our people. So it didn't happen today, back then. What can we say of our situation today, right? It's dire, which is why these very verses and this very situation was brought up in Masechet Sanhedrin 77b. By the way, all these things in great detail, look it up in the Calling All Jews series. It's more relevant for today than any other time in history. Rabbi Eliezer says if Israel osim tshuva, if they repent, they are redeemed. And if not, they are not redeemed. That's it. Tshuva, nothing else. Rabbi Yeshua said to him, if they do not repent, will they not be redeemed at all? No, they won't. Not if we don't all do tshuva. So how are we going to manage this? Not on our own. We cannot do this on our own, obviously. But with God's assistance in the form of Haman's decree. Rather, the Holy One, blessed be He, will establish a king over them, whose decrees are as harsh as those issued by Haman. And the Jewish people will have no choice but to repent. And this will restore them to the right path. Then after, Rabbi Yoshua explains, you were sold for naught. You were sold for nothing, right? From the verse, means you were sold for idol worship, which is a sin with no basis. What does that mean, a sin with no basis? Meaning there is quite literally nothing there to redeem. You were sold for nothing, for idolatry. It's good for nothing. And therefore, and without money, you shall be redeemed, like we read from Isaiah. Meaning, you will be redeemed not through repentance and good deeds. God needs to do this for you. Today, we can only do our ishtadlut. We could try as hard as we can. But we need to get to that point that a Haman kind of comes and gives us this decree. God will send the Haman of our generation who will decree lehashmid, laharog, uleabed, to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish. The gematria, the numerical value of those three key words is 676, lashmid, laharog, uleabed, which is equal to the words ataher etchem, I will cleanse you, I will make you pure. Through this decree, you will be pure, you will do tshuva. So accept this, O Israel. Brace yourselves and begin to do tshuva, at least on your own, making the process slightly less painful. Resistance is futile, as this is all inevitable, as the only way out is in. And that's our class for today. So thank you, as always, for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Have a Shabbat Shalom. Have a Chodesh Tov that happens on Sunday. And hopefully I'll see y'all next week. Bye-bye.